Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am a regular EV dad, also known as John, and with me for this, our third episode.
I'm Joe from JKEV.
We're going to talk about charging today. We're going to talk about, and just to be clear about this, the whole thing for this video series, this is based off our experience. We're not talking about what's going on in the news. We're not talking about what we hope is going to happen. We're going to talk about what's happening, what's happened in our life, in our experience as regular EV users. That we may occasionally do irregular things like drive across the country in 6 days. Now, we thought today we would talk about charging, particularly about DC fast charging, because it's one of the things which buyers get hung up about. I was at a charger this weekend in the middle of the Central Valley in California, in Panache Shell. Lady with a brand new RAV4 XLE comes up to me and she says, "How long does it take you to charge that thing up?" And she wasn't expecting well, I can put 100 miles in it in 12 minutes. That's not the answer they're looking for. So we're gonna cover this in a bit more detail. So I thought I got a bit of a shopping list, if that's all right for you, Joe. So today we're going to talk about DC fast charging, and this isn't just about the Volkswagen ID4. This is about basically anything that's not a Tesla or a Nissan Leaf, which uses something called CHAdeMO. Joe, let's start off with let's talk about Electrify America at the end, because I know that I'm guessing for you Electrify America is like the bulk of your DC fast charging.
Yeah, for the most part.
So let's talk about that last. Let's start off with the other net. So which of the networks have you had cause to use?
So I believe the only I've encountered is EVGO and ChargePoint for fast charging. And then for level 2 charging, I've used ChargePoint and Tesla destination chargers. I think at maybe a time or two, I might have had like just a Bosch level 2 unit that's out in the wild, but there's no affiliation regarding those. Those are the only 2 main brands.
And just in case you're not aware with this, level 1 is the 2-pin socket outside the house, 110. Level 2 is 220 volts and up to 50 amps, and that's what we call a charge box or juice box or whatever. That's level 2. Those are the ones which you'll often see in car parks, at the stores and stuff like that. And essentially that can put between 20 and up to ballpark 50 miles an hour of juice into your vehicle. They're the reason why we don't go to gas stations, because we come in at home at night and plug in and we wake up with a full set of Duracells, nearly 300 miles of range. That's what makes that's part of what makes the EV long-range EV experience so nice. Because do you miss gas stations? Do you love that? Do you miss the queue and the smell of Tillamook's little Smokies? Is that something you miss, Joe?
Not too much. Those rollers, I've always wondered how many miles they roll a
day. That is a question. I will leave my 7-Eleven comedic material alone right now. How many taquitos is good? I don't think there's not a number on that.
That's usually a 2-pack, I thought. With that said, what I've always heard is regarding the plugging in the car, some people, the ultimate inconvenience is going to a gas station. And other people say the ultimate inconvenience is plugging in the car a couple times a week. So
my wife has commented, Mrs. Regular EV has commented that she does, what happens if I forget? To which I explain, just, as long as you get the kid out, we'll be fine. All right, so that's level 2. And then level 3, also known as DC fast charging. This is where we can dump hundreds of miles into the battery in just a handful of minutes, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So Joe, give me your best. We talk EVGO and ChargePoint. Let's talk EVGO's I think when it comes to DC fast charging, they're kind of like the OG. They're the granddaddy of DC fast charging there. It's what's the network? How familiar with the EVGO network are you in Chicagoland?
Unfortunately, I've only used it once, and that was actually in Park City, Utah. So it was just I think it was like a 40 or 45 kilowatt unit peak speed for the ID4. That's just pretty much any points of charge, you get full speed from those units. So I was in a situation where I needed to get an extra 10% so I knew I could make it to my destination. And thankfully the unit worked pretty well. So no complaints from EVGO on that one.
No, and I'm going to say I have no complaints about EVGO. I've been using EVGO for a good number of years because it was the default with the BMW i3 that I took ownership of. Let me see, the kid's 5 years old. 7 years ago? No, it actually might be 7 years ago. Wow, that is 24. Yeah, okay. So I'm getting older every day. I keep forgetting these things. And so BMW had an agreement with EVGO, and you got free DC fast charging for I think it was for the first year. Now the car only had a range of 100 miles and change. So if you were going to do anything of significant distance, it was essential to have that capability. But for the most part, EVGO is limited to 50 kilowatt. Some of them, and I'm not a physics guy, I'm not an electrician, so some of them do run a higher ampage, which equates to 55, essentially equates to 55, and some of the Chevy Bolts can take advantage of that extra 10%. But our vehicles, the ID4, can ingest currently 126 kilowatts, and actually sometimes a few more. The Mustang can take 150 and change. What else is there that can take above 100 these days? The Nero and the
e-tron's 150.
e-tron's 150. Yeah, e-tron will take 150. The
Nero and Corona are 75 or 80, I think, right?
Yeah, they can take 70 and change, I think. You said the Nero and the Konas. But essentially, moving forward, the 100 kilowatt is going to be essentially the minimum. EVGO do actually have 200 kilowatt chargers, and I know this because they have them here in San Jose. And in fact, News Coolum did a site review on them a while ago, which is why I know they're there, though I did use them myself. And not for a good reason, because it was a really busy car park and there was no spaces, so I used the EV space and plugged in just to get space. And I'm not a good person, but I didn't need a charge, but I did want some cheese. It's a recurrent theme in my life. I was in Trader Joe's at the weekend, and a store person asked me to not fondle the brie. No joke. Apparently, if I'm on the brie fondling register, I've earned it. It's a thing. I did buy my brie.
That explains the picture by the front door.
Yes. Brie fondler. Those are my pronouns. No, so they do actually have faster ones, and I didn't use it, but they do also. I know it's only one location. I'm sure there are in others, but they have faster 100 kilowatt plus chargers in the Denver area as well, Whole Foods, because we looked at using that on our cross-country road trip. The other one, have you used the ChargePoint DC fast chargers, or only their level 2?
I've used a lot of their DC. Well, I say a lot, but I've used probably close to 10 or 12 of their DC chargers.
I have to say, I mean, the EVGO interface, let's just stay in EVGO for a minute. First of all, they have a lot of old hardware out there. It can be a little bit kludgy, and you need an RFID card, and you can start things with an app. But if you look, a lot of what I call the infrastructure, so the substation machinery and everything is actually built into the EVGO units. That's why they're so big. I actually pulled by Harris Ranch, which is one of the really important stops here on I-5. It's sort of halfway between LA and San Francisco. And they've just, Electrify America has pulled out the new units, well, relatively new, they're a year old or so. And they've also pulled out the EVGOs, and you just look at the size of these things. I mean, they could use them as small houses. But it's because they had so much infrastructure in them, because these were the phase 1 units back in the day. Some of these are up to 10 years old. But the charge points, I have to say, they have a lovely interface. I mean, pretty reliable. I don't think you see, and I think the reliable comes down to their business model. EVGO sells you access and electricity, whereas ChargePoint, they sell their units to providers. There is no ChargePoint network. There is a network of ChargePoint devices, but it's not one plan. The price you pay is set at a local level. And the local, whether it's the energy provider like it is in, I'm thinking of the one I used in, not Portland, Klamath, where Central Oregon Energy sets the price, like I think it was like 25 cents a kilowatt, but it was done by whatever time of day it was, peak and off peak. The one I used 2 charge points, which were 62 and a half, 125, they were split. One in Price, Utah. Did you go through Price?
No, I used in Utah. I used one in. Actually, I guess I didn't use one in Utah. I used a couple of them in Colorado, but in like northwestern Colorado by the Utah border.
Oh yeah, I know the ones you mean. I had one of those as my potential pull-off point if things went wrong at some point. But great interface, great company, and they're reliably consistent. And I think this is because they push. You can't build it if you don't have a service contract to manage it. It's been referenced by other writers and speakers on the subject. It's not a network, it's a collection, it's a collective, and it kind of works. That brings us to Electrify America, which has, in 3 years, so Electrify America was created out of the Dieselgate settlement. Between now and 2026, Volkswagen committed to building out a network and spending $2 billion. Some of it, most of it for the infrastructure, a third of it goes into California because, obviously, it's California, we're special. And then a huge chunk for education as well. But it has to be said, without Electrify America, you and I wouldn't have done our road trips this summer.
Yeah, not even close. I'm not even sure that I would have purchased the car.
No, that is, and it is the chicken and egg situation. Tesla were selling Model S's before the supercharger network, but they were hitting a wall. Their rate of growth was hampered by the fact that these predominantly Californian citizens wanted to. They didn't want a $80,000 Nissan Leaf. They wanted to go further, and in fact, I think the first 2 or 3. I think the first charge. I'll have to check this. I'm not using Wikipedia. Look, these are my hands. Was the Tesla plant in Fremont, Hawthorne in LA, the design studio, Harris Ranch, and which I mentioned just before, and Fort Tejon, just under the grapevine. I think those were the first ones, and they allowed you to go from LA to the Bay Area. And then they built around that and then expanded. Now, Electrify America has done it much quicker. There are bigger gaps, but it's all current generation. And look, I could talk eloquently, relatively eloquently, about the different types of ABB and the ones they're retiring and stuff like that. But let's start off with your best experiences of Electrify America. What let us know if this was on your road trip or not. But what has been your best EA experience?
I'd say, well, pretty much all of them have been very good. Once they're activated, I've ran into issues where activating the chargers was most of the issues. But pretty much every location, if the first charger I plug into didn't deliver peak speed, I move over a spot and I can still get the full 125 if my battery can accept it. So, and that's everywhere from here to Vegas, from Tahoe to home, back here to Chicago. I'm pretty impressed with the network.
Yeah,
at least through my experiences.
I'll tell you what, Joe, let's make the next video. So, here's an intro, people. the next video, let's talk about getting the most out of chargers and charging curves. Let's get into the nitty and gritty of getting the most out of them, as opposed to the geography and usability of them. How's that sound?
Sounds pretty good.
I got to agree with you on the for the most part, I'm going to go with in excess of 90% of them have been delightfully boring. It's just worked, and I think I mentioned it on the last one. Most of the times we were ahead of the charging curve. Given that we're going to talk about that in a minute, I won't in the next video. I won't get too much in, but it's delivered more power than we were expecting in a shorter time frame. So that's always been positive. There are we've had a couple of issues. I'll talk about. Do I have a worse experience? Winnemucca.
My worst experience would be Richfield, Utah.
So tell me about Richfield.
Where all 4 units did not work.
Oh wow! Let me sit down while you tell us about Richfield, Utah. So what? I gotta. Where's Richfield, Utah? I don't know Richfield, Utah.
It's in between Salina and Cedar City, kind of just south of. I think it would be the next charger south of Spanish Fork, which is just south of Salt Lake City. I'm really digging into my mental map right now.
Yeah, that's down. So that's now you got. So yeah, south of Spanish Fork. The next one after Spanish Fork is Green. Oh, so if you take the fork, oh well, there you go. Yeah, Spanish Fork, living up to his name, you can either drop down 6 to hit Green River on the way to Denver, but you went the other way. You started heading west and dropped down from Spanish Fork down 70 to head. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So in that situation, they were all it was one of their typical. So 2 150s, 2 350s, and one of the 150s had a CHAdeMO, one of those situations.
Yeah, there's definitely something wrong on the cabinet side. So we used pretty much every plug on every unit. And there was definitely like an electrical arcing kind of buzzing sound coming from in the cabinet area, which I've never encountered before. And it would ramp up, say it was going to deliver like say 40 kilowatts or something, start like it was going to increase to a higher speed. And then all of a sudden you hear the buzzing and it would just slowly trickle back down and stop. Now, thankfully, we had actually, because the elevation going from there to Cedar City, we actually had enough juice to make it. We were just running into a Walmart, so we figured why not plug in, but it could have been bad.
No, you raised an interesting situation there. I'm intellectually curious. So I want to see you had enough juice to get somewhere. I'm going to log into PlugShare. In fact, here, let me share my screen. We'll put this on the thing. This is interesting. So what would have your options be? Now let me get. I've got my plugs.
Let's see.
So
there was Salina. I believe Salina was the one I charged at right before I got there.
And just to show people what I'm doing here, so this is PlugShare, which is one of the core apps. We should do a video about the apps we use. I think you don't need apps to buy gas, but it sure as hell makes doing this. And I'm going to include the Tesla, because you and I can use the Tesla with our Tesla dApps.
I don't know if my camera's on, but that's right here.
Oh, there we go. Richfield, Utah. Let's see what your options could have been. Well, there was the Walmart where you had the issues.
Yep.
Well, you could have used the Utah DOT units nearby. Literally, that's less than a mile away. Now, I can tell you something about these, not because I've been to this particular site, but because I used a Utah Department of Transport site at their actual head office just in Taylorsville. They're not actually 125, it's 125, but it's actually limited to 62.5. But it's still, it's good when you need it. And if that hadn't been available, then you would have been, I guess, at the Comfort Inn. And that, or the
well, I think 15 miles north, there's the charger I came from. Right there.
Loves.
Yep,
this is the newish one at Loves, yes.
Yeah, so I charged there, and then we wanted to run to Walmart. So I figured, okay, we'll hit this Richfield one to charge more.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out, thankfully, we still had enough to actually just make it south to, I believe, Cedar City's the next one down the way.
Let's show people what we mean by this, because this is a nice thing you can do. I don't want to get too into the weeds on this. Let me create a very quick trip here. Trip planner.
Yeah, this is definitely a future video of
right
in depth on a better route planner and PlugShare, and yeah.
But one thing that this does, which ID4 Richfield, Utah, and you went to Cedar City.
Yeah.
And this is one of the wonderful things this shows you, not just, you know, fantastic, it's 115 miles as the crow flies, but you can actually see the elevation. And yeah, that's why you were getting some of your energy back and why you didn't use too much, because you weren't.
And there actually was a charger in the middle there. I saw that we must have stopped at.
In Beaver.
Yeah. Yep, we did a quick top up there. Yep.
And this is the thing, quick top up, and that's the thing, because this is, you know, the how we charge situation. That was your worst. My worst was Winnemucca, and there's a joke. I know it's my life, me talking. There's jokes. It happens. The irony is that my family, every time we drive on 80, my wife has a fixed policy. She will not stop in Winnemucca. Will not stop, because when she was a young lady, a young girl, their transmission went out in Winnemucca and they had to spend the night in a casino, and they ended up being there for a couple of days. And apparently Winnemucca is not somewhere you want to stop. As such, my wife will not stop for gas in Winnemucca. We get gas in Fernley. We've once got gas in Lovelock, but then we are going to Elko. There's no, and this isn't a negotiation. So the irony that I had to stop in Winnemucca on the way home was not lost on me. And sure enough, Winnemucca decided it wanted to try and keep me. I've still never received an answer from Electrify America on this one. I don't know how this can happen. I don't know. There's things I just don't understand, which infuriates me. There was 4 chargers, 2 350s, 2 150s. One of the 150s had a Chatamo. There was a guy in a Mustang plugged in when I got there, and he was remonstrating on the phone with customer support at Electrify America. He plugged into all the chargers and all the heads except one, and he went and plugged into that, and he was only pulling 30 kilowatts, and he'd been there for a while. As is the way, and you'll find this as you do these road trips, you plug in, then find out what your problem is. If you can find out from PlugShare which units are working last, go and plug in there. It just makes your life easier. But just plug in, and then you know, don't plan it for everything. Just plug in and then see if you have a problem. Sure enough, I was pulling a maximum of 30. But I knew which ones he'd been plugged into, so I knew there was no point me plugging in there. I know that his unit the Mustang's weird. Its charging profile is to pull 150 regardless, but only for a few minutes. It's time-based, not battery conditions-based. Sure enough, only one head would deliver 100 kilowatts of energy. It was the one he was using. He left and I used it, but I haven't been able to resolve why it would only deliver 30 kilowatts. I mean, I work in things are either working or not working. It's not like you can put your foot on the cable and stop the electric coming through. It's not a water hose, so I still don't know how why it would limit itself to 30 kilowatts. It seems strange, but yeah, Winnemucca was not where I wanted to be.
I'm digging through my history, seeing what my complaints were there.
Oh, that's funny. Hold on, this was at what's it, at Beaver, at Richfield?
Yep. Here's my review when I checked in on June 4th. Chargers 2 and 4 only delivered 31 kilowatt, but charger 1 delivered 125.
We can actually, let's, you know what, let's let the world see this for a second. I got you right here. So all 4 chargers faulted and sound like power was arcing. That was
but that was Richfield, right? Yeah.
That was Richfield, yeah. And yeah, and someone else had good news. There's a DOT up the road, so apparently someone else. You have to have a sense of humor about these things. Let me see. So let me go to Winnemucca. Hold on, let me come out of here very quickly. Let me go to Winnemucca. Where's Winnemucca?
At the top of the peak, down a little bit.
Yeah. There we go. All right. So Winnemucca. Oops.
My review is a couple below yours, I believe.
Oh yeah, this is where we saw each other. Well, one of the places we missed each other. Now the good news is, look at this, lots and lots of reviews. This is good because, you know, if you put the speed in, that helps your fellow your fellow man. Charging 28 kilowatts but free. Only one of them is available. 2 crashed. One's running at 30, but it's free. Capped out at 38. This person thought it was their car. Obviously, it's not. Someone driving a Ford Focus electric across 80?
Wow.
In case you're not aware, this thing has got maybe 100 miles, maybe 100 miles.
When it was new.
Yeah, that is a thing. So yeah, that was mine. Only number 4 was working above 30 kilowatts, and
couple more down.
Chargers 2 and 4 only delivered 31. But number 1 was 125, absolutely. And I took your advice and hit number 1. This is why good comments are helpful for everybody. But it would appear that was June 4th. I had the same issue on the 22nd. And it looks like relatively recently, still the same problem. In fact, today, still the same problem. And this is, now these are the older units. I know that because there's a picture of one here with an with a regular EV Dad sticker on it to help people know that this was the one that was working. I don't put my stickers on these things anymore, I promise. But I did put one on this one to say the one with the, and I put it on Twitter, the one with the sticker is the one that's working. But these are the original ABB units. This is what they started building the network. And the issue, Electrify America had to build the network really quickly. So that's why there's different kinds of hardware. You've got the original ABBs, you've got the newer ones, you've got the Signet, and then you've got, I forgot the name of the third one. It's gone out of my head completely.
It's not around here. I think it's on the East Coast.
Yeah, I think so. It's just gone out of my head. But they are replacing these units as they go. In fact, these ones have been decommitted. These ones are all being upgraded to the new ABBs that look like Signets, and that's what they're doing at Harris Ranch. Let me stop sharing. That was a problem. Let's talk about and we'll talk about this in the next about getting the most out of it. But but you tend to use the tap to pay. You've enabled the NFC payment option.
Yeah, at first I didn't know that we could use that. I thought that the only way we could use our free charging was to activate through the app. I'm not sure. I think I saw that somewhere on YouTube and just, I guess, took their word for it. But when I left on my trip, because, Electrify America always does upgrades on holiday weekends. That's kind of their forte.
Yeah.
All the chargers from Iowa, Nebraska, and Eastern Colorado were blank on the app. They weren't even visible. So I knew they were there. I was standing next to them, but they were not visible on the app. So as I was going, I was just calling, and they were just activating a charger before I got there. And they said, go charger 2, use handle 1. Okay. And it was ready. Yeah. But eventually I got a different customer service. I got like the same guy 3 times in a row. And then I got a girl, and she said, well, have you tried the tap to pay? And so she guided me through going in the Electrify America app, downloading adding it to the Apple Wallet in my case. And that's worked so much better for me. I've just kind of been using that by default. Every so often I'll try to use the app, but for some reason it seems to be a little buggy on the recent iOS updates.
Yeah, I'm gonna, and so I won't labor the point, but I'm gonna talk briefly about my worst experience, which wasn't Winnemucca. I made a mistake. It was yesterday. So I'm gonna put a link to the video right here, and I've called it, does Electrify, the video is called, Does Electrify America Have a Heat Problem? And so this is known in the Tesla world. There is a thermometer in the handle of the DC fast charger, of the supercharger. And when it gets hot, it throttles back. It's part of, you know, standard self-preservation. A number of YouTubers and Tesla enthusiasts have found out that if you take a wet rag and put that on the handle.
Just about to say that.
Hmm?
You beat me to what I was thinking.
What, was it the wet rag or the handle bit that made you laugh? That's what I'm curious, because if you put a wet rag on my handle, I'll say thank you, but only my wife's allowed to be in the room at the time. Very strict about these things. This is not a pineapple-friendly environment. Not that I haven't asked. And at that point, we got demonetized. We weren't even making any money, and we lost everything. No. I actually am here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I had, and as you can see a longer version of this in the video. Now I use EV Notify to record data from the BMS system directly. BMS means battery management system for those of you playing at home. Let me just share this. And so these are the charging profiles yesterday. So I did a little 400-mile run. Can you see my big screen, Joe?
Yep.
Cool. Just otherwise they're going to be seeing a much smaller version of this and you and me's head, and it's just going to look weird. So I did a 400-mile trip yesterday down to Paso, over to Lost Hill to pick up a dog, and then drove home. And let me show you what a good charging curve looks like. We'll come back to this in the next video, but this is what they should do. This, however, was weird. I decided to move to a second machine, the one next door, and I got locked. My account got locked. When I disconnected, it didn't stop the session, so I couldn't start a new session, and that took 10 minutes to resolve. That yesterday was bad, and I think it was caused by the heat. We have questions, because first of all, you get this erratic charging pattern, but you can see my battery temperatures are absolutely fine. The second one was absolutely fine. Started at 100, but a 50% battery level, that's absolutely normal. And then it just ramps down as this ramps up. But when I got to Pinoche, it dumped to 70 and then just charged at 70. But can you see these little bubbles here where it goes up a little bit?
Yep.
Those are the points when I put a rag over it and poured water on it and cooled it down. So I have questions, and I've tweeted Electrify America to ask them a response, and just click on the link that I provided and you can go into this in more detail. And then I got home at night, plugged in, and it just did exactly what it should do all the time. So anyway, that's the boring stuff. So in review, Electrify America is doing a good job under difficult circumstances, or would you say something differently?
I would say in most cases, people are quick to blame Electrify America, but I'm a proponent of blaming potentially the automakers in some cases. Now, in our case, there is no excuse. They're the same company. But for example, when there was Ford issues, I would question how much time did Ford give Electrify America, the car, to be able to sort out their charging issues before the car went live?
Well, and I think they mentioned this on a recent Inside EV podcast. So apparently, Volvos and Polestars can't use Signet networks, can't use Signet.
That still is a problem to this day, as far as I know. Yep.
Now, I spoke to Dustin Kraus at VW, the head of electric, a couple of weeks ago. And we talked about this exact issue. One of their, so would you like, oh, now then, that goes across the NDA. Hold on. Okay. I nearly caught myself out there, you see. So, as you're well aware, the Volkswagen ID4 was released during COVID. that possibly gave them a couple of issues in getting a vehicle actually into the country for testing with Electrify America. And so they got their certification done, but they weren't able to get all the data that they would like to have done. But hopefully that's all going to be resolved in the update that we are due to get in the next month or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rolling out to ID3 people right now in Europe. We believe it's going to come to ID4 America in a little while. So hopefully we're told that that will give us plug and play. Whether that will resolve the authentication issues, because that's what's causing these things, is to be decided. But I mean, let me ask you one more question. I think when it comes to the placement of, how convenient did you, I mean, obviously we always know where we're going to find them. Walmart, Targets, this is Electron America, Walmart, Target, Safeways over here. Casey's general stores are found in the Midwest. That they're usually next to the major highways. You don't have to, and then you get the residential charges. Well, I call them resident, the suburban ones. Have you found their placement to be useful for you? Have you had to go out of your way to charge?
The one that I think is pretty famously known as terrible location is Grand Junction, Colorado.
Yeah,
that's like 4 to 5 miles off the highway and back.
Let me just so people can see. Let me just dump it. Let me share this. Yeah, you have a couple of ways of approaching it. It is an interesting one. So Grand Junction, as its name suggests, is just that. It is a Grand Junction. It's in the middle of everything. Let me lose some plugs from here because we don't need to see these right now. So this one here, no, Mesa. So here's the Sam's Club. And it doesn't look to be that far off the freeway, does it, Joe? Look, there's the freeway. There is Sam's Club. But no, you have to come, depending on whether you're going east, west, or north, basically you have to come off. Traffic will then decide whether you go down service roads down here, but down Riverside Parkway, and then come in through the back of a Chick-fil-A to then cross the freeway. It's traffic lights. It is bizarre. And even coming in the other way, this was what blew me away, is this is not, and there's no off ramp. All this stuff here between 70 and 6. There's no offs here. This is just for connecting the freeways, and so you have to come off.
It's a cluster.
Where's 70 gone? Yeah, you have to come off back here, and then it is special.
But outside of that one, I don't think I recall any of them being in particular very frustrating to find.
No, and it also because the one thing about nice being at the Walmarts is you do have the 24-hour bathrooms for the most part. That's always useful. Yep. All right, I think if you have anything else to add, otherwise I think this has been a good video for the world.
I mean, I think the networks are getting better. This is far improvement from where things were a couple of years ago.
Well, I mean, we touched on it last time. If it hadn't have been for that one at West Wendover, you and I wouldn't be talking. This would not have happened. That West Wendover and Green River, they are the virtual golden spikes of this new infrastructure. If those two sites didn't exist, those were the two sites that connected the Midwest and the West. It would have been a very different world. It'll be nice when we get our software updates and we can take more advantage of this, of the power.
Hopefully some higher peak speeds.
Absolutely.
And plug and charge. Yeah. Lots of rumors, but we'll see.
Yeah. We will see. I'm sure there'll be a video the minute that happens. All right, let's bring that to the close. Our next video is going to be about how to get the best out of DC fast charging. Again, based on our experience, and also we'll show you some data as well. Otherwise, I've been John, your regular EV dad.
I'm Joe from JKEV.
And if you have been, thanks so much for putting in the time. Please consider liking and subscribing both the video and subscribing to our requisite channels. We're going to try and flip this between the playlist between two channels, see how that works out. But subscribe to both of us, and then you'll find out where it is. Hit that notification bell and do all the things that YouTube socially engineers and commands you to. Other than that, be happy.
Take care.